The call to prayer, page 5, we rise.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariva ravim b'chokma protection.
Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's divisions, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night.
Ma'avir yom u'mevir laila u'mavdil bein yom u'bein laila Adonai tzavaot shemo elachai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai
Page 6.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael Alecha Torah u'mitzvot u'kim u'mishpatim otanu ותרתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה שמות תשמעו מצוותיי אשר אנוכי מצוויתם היום לעבודת אדוני. תרתם את הארץ. דברי אלה דבר בחמד ראש. בואו ימיכם בימי בניכם. ויאמר אדוני משה, דבר בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ואמרנו כל זאת וקיים עלינו כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואין זולתו.
God performs wonders beyond understanding, marvels beyond all reckoning. God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies.
I think Rabbi Goldstein is going to join us before we do Mechamocha. Right.
I'm going to introduce, because for many of us, Rabbi Ben Goldstein is a new voice, a new presence, and an important presence in our midst. Rabbi Ben Goldstein is our transition rabbi, and this is the first time for High Holidays that he has the opportunity to participate. And before he introduces Michamocha, there is an opportunity for all of us to say Mazal Tov to Rabbi Goldstein, in that on Facebook today, he and his now fiancée, Maureen Sweeney, announced their getting married. So to Rabbi Goldstein, Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
Later, our board, with Esther Dosick representing our board, will say a little bit more about who Rabbi Goldstein is and what he'll mean to us as a community. But now, Rabbi Goldstein will give us insight into the Micha Mocha.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Are you ever about to tell a joke and then somebody adds, builds it up so much, and now you're like, well, that wasn't a funny joke to begin with, but I'm going to tell it anyway. We're on the middle of page 8, and I just want to talk for a moment about the Micha Mocha. In Hebrew, it says, Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh, norat hilot osef eleh. Who is like you, God, among the mighty? Who is like you, adorned in holiness, revered in praise, working wonders? There are two ways to look at this phrase. One of them is this kind of obsequious gesture where we're just praising God and praising God. Another is it's actually a question. We don't know God. We try to have some idea of what God might be, but we never can encapsulate exactly what God is. And so we have all of these guesses. Mi chamocha, who's like you? What are you like? What is God? And there's a hint in an interpretation that I like where it says Be'elim Adonai, amongst the mighty. Well, the God that we believe in one God. So there's no one to rival. But the word Elim is also, according to the commentaries, talks about the overt versus covert. That God works both by splitting seas in an overt and miraculous way, and also behind the scenes. And so as we enter into this high holiday season, it's a way to let God into our lives in all of facets, in God in larger ways and smaller. So, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova and Baruch haba.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לחנו שירה שמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נהדר בקודש נורא ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
On page 9 is the Hoshiki Venu prayer. Carl Cedar comes forward to join our cantor, Amy Robinson-Katz. But before they sing to us this prayer, I invite us to read it in English, for it links to my teaching later, in that it's a prayer that acknowledges uncertainty, a sense that night creates fear, and we turn to God at night asking for God's protection. Let us read together. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to waken again to life, our sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace, restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you are the sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us and over all the people Israel and over Jerusalem.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom, L'shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך.
Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai.
Guard us from all harm will be, O Adonai.
Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light.
Just and wrong from right.
Amen.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu
L'shalom, L'shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim.
פרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך,
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורץ סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Page 10 is the final prayer, the Chatzi Kaddish, which comes as kind of a marking the end of the Shema U'Birchoteha, the Shema and her blessings, which remind us as to the nature of God. And then after the Chatzi Kaddish, with our Amidah prayer, we now, having remembered how God is the creator, how God is our teacher, how God is our redeemer, are ready to have a conversation with God. Our standing prayer is done in the plural on behalf of community, but each of us is a representative coming before God in conversation. Before the Amidah standing prayer, for each of the holidays, there is a verse different for every holiday that links to the mood. And so on page 10, before the Chatzi Kaddish, is a verse from Psalm 81. I love the Psalms. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, sound the shofar on the month. B'kesa liyom chagenu, when it is hidden away. Ki chok li Yisrael hu, for it is a statute for Israel. Mishpat lelohei Yaakov, a law for the God of Jacob. An image to help prepare us for the Amidah. First, the beautiful teaching of the Slonim Rabbi. I once had the privilege of meeting the Slonim Rav in his later years in Meir Sharim. The Slonim Rav said that we can learn how to pray from a farmer. The first thing that a farmer needs to do is to till the soil, to dig deep. That to pray, you have to go deep within yourself. And then, one, plant seeds. Those seeds, the Slonim Rabbi said, are the words that have been given to us. And then, for the crop to grow, there needs to be rain. He said, those are our tears. That when we go deep within, all the more within high holidays, maybe tonight not tears of sadness, but tears of celebration as well. The tears that acknowledge that we have come through a tough year, a difficult time. There is much to celebrate and reason to be hopeful. And so the Slonim Rav said, as we begin to pray, we have to go dig deep, open our hearts, and use the words of our tradition like seeds, and then water those with either sadness or with joy. One last comment in that regard, and that is, Tiku b'chodesh shofar, sound the blast of the shofar for the month. The sounds of the shofar that we will hear tomorrow opens with a whole note, then broken notes, and then a whole note. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said there is nothing more whole than a broken heart. And the shofar, and even now as we turn to the Amidah, we're called to hear the sound of Rosh Hashanah on this Yom Teruah, the day of the shofar blast, a sound that is one sound we know that is unchanged, generation to generation, linking us all the way back to Mount Sinai and beyond. And so, Chatzi Kaddish, and then our own conversations with God, with the sound of the shofar and the opening of our heart.
יתקדם ויתקדש שמי רבה ואלמדי ורק ירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי הון וביומי הון ובחיי דכו בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ומרו יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עליה v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yidroma v'yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dekudshah b'richu. Le'ela, le'ela, mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran ve'alema ve'imeru.
Pages 11 to 17, privately.
Yikadaw yikadash shemei Rabba, ve'aleman divra kirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayeichonu v'yomeichonu b'chayidecho beit Yisrael, b'galav izman kariv v'mebu, amen. Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach, la'alam u'la'lamei amaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha. Brichu le'la mikol v'rchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damiran v'alama v'mebu, Amen. תקבל צלותנו בתוכן דכל ישראל, כל דם אבוהון דבישמעיה בימבו, אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמעיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל בימבו, אמן. ועושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל. ואמרו,
We thank our Cantor, Amy Robinson-Katz, our Baal Tefillah, Carl Cedar for the Hoshiki, and our choir sounds wonderful. It's one of the things that we are doing differently this year. Namely, last year, there was nobody in the room. That's one change. This year is the year of the Mass, but last year was the year of services only coming live stream. And what Amy and Carl taught me is that people don't hear community singing unless it's in a microphone. And since most of our community, and it is a shared community by shared focus, most of you are watching at home, hopefully with family around you, and our choir creates, with our Cantor's leadership, the sound of community, the sound of our holiday. And so this year was not anticipated last year, but then last year was not anticipated the year before. Every year, on the first night of Rosh Hashanah, that's when I kind of move my odometer of how many years it is that I am leading a high holiday service. So tonight is my 34th and my final high holidays, my swan song, as the Rabbi of Congregation B'nai Israel. Last year, with our Cantor's foresight and leadership, we pre-recorded 11 hours and had 7 hours live. I think more service on the internet than any other congregation I know, in terms of both being traditional in our services and yet using the technology to reach a larger audience. For Kol Nidre, we had over 5,000 viewers in terms of screens. It was beyond our expectations. And I do hope that this year, with Rabbi Goldstein's participation and all that we're sharing, we will also get many who, with the resources that we have, able, whether you're here in our sanctuary or outside tomorrow in our courtyard or at home, able to share. To make the most of COVID, I learned something I didn't know before, which is that you can teach a half-hour class. It never occurred to me because before COVID, all the classes that I taught were people coming to the synagogue, basically, and it would take more than a half hour for most people to get here. But with Zoom, I was able to begin to teach a half hour, 3 days a week, and in the course of these 18 months, was able to go through and teach and translate the 150 Psalms. And what I'd like to do this evening is teach one of those Psalms. I met that goal of the 150 Psalms about 2 months ago, so I haven't had a chance to kind of really bite into a psalm. Psalm 27 is on page 27 in our Machzors, and I want to talk a little bit about its artistry and its meaning, and how it relates to this moment of radical uncertainty. Now, the rabbis had 150 psalms to choose from, and the custom became that in the month of Elul, every day, you would read a psalm in the morning and in the evening to prepare you for the new year. Actually, even beyond, it is read, that psalm, twice a day, all the way to the end of Sukkot, yet in front of us. And remarkably, having 150 psalms they could have picked, they could have done a variety of psalms. There are some psalms, like Psalm 81, that deals with repentance. Remarkably, they chose Psalm 27 that does not deal with repentance as the psalm to say twice a day. And so the question first to put in the back of your mind is, why is this the mantra? Why are these the words that we repeat over and over in anticipation of a new year? And what I'd like to do, you have on page 27 the wonderful translation by Rabbi Erev and friends, but I want to read my own translation because I worked hard on it and I miss teaching from my translations. So I'm going to read Psalm 27. I'm going to talk a little bit about its artistry, and then where I'm going is to talk about why is this the psalm that we're scheduled to read tonight. This will check it off. We won't have to read it again. Why Psalm 27? And what does it have to say to us living as we are amidst uncertainty? Psalm 27. For David, Adonai is my light and my deliverance. Whom shall I fear? Adonai is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evil doers draw near me to devour my flesh, my tormentors and my enemies, they are to me. They stumble and they fall. If a camp encamps against me, my heart will not fear. Even if war arises against me, in this I do trust. One thing I ask of Adonai, of this I seek, that I may find Shabbat in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to behold the pleasantness of Adonai, and to awaken in God's palace. For God will shelter me in the divine sukkah on the day of the evil, conceal me in the concealment of God's tent. Upon a rock will raise me up. And now, raise up my head above my enemies who surround me, and I will sacrifice in God's tent, sacrifices of truah. I will sing and hymn to Adonai. To you my heart has said, seek my face. Your face, Adonai, I do seek. Do not conceal your face from me. Do not turn away in anger. Your servant, you are my help. Do not cast me off. Do not leave me, my God of my deliverance. For though my father and my mother leave me, Adonai will gather me in. Parent me, Adonai, of your way and lead me on an upright path. Despite my watchful foes, do not give over my spirit to my tormentors. For having risen against me are false witnesses who breathe out violence. Were I not to believe that I will see the goodness of Adonai in the land of the living? Hope for Adonai. Let your heart be strong and courageous, and hope for Adonai. A story of Admiral James Stockdale, the highest ranking soldier in the Vietnam War, taken captive by the Vietnamese. He was a Navy pilot who got shot down early in the war, right after the Bay of Tonkin incident. And as his plane was crashing, he parachuted out and was beaten as he landed in a farm area, taken to what was called the Hanoi Hilton, where he was repeatedly tortured and would be in an enormously difficult situation for 7.5 years. His story is called the Stockdale Paradox. It was recorded in Jim Collins' book, From Good to Great, in which Collins, the business writer, interviewed him. And he said to Stockdale, who would lead the resistances against the North Vietnamese who never gave in to the torture of which he was repeatedly put into. He said, when asked by Jim Collins, who were the soldiers that were least likely to do well in captivity? And he said, the optimists. The optimists were the least likely to get through the horrible conditions of captivity. Because the optimists would say, you know, the Viet Cong, the Vietnamese, they're going to free us at Christmas. Christmas would come and go. They said, Easter, we're going to be out of here. Thanksgiving, they'll make a symbolic gesture. And when that holiday came and went, they lost all sense of morale, all sense of possibility, and they didn't survive. Admiral to be, he would later become the head of the Naval War College, said that those who were able to endure the challenges of the uncertainty, of the darkness, were those who were able to live a paradox of being able to see reality squarely and at the same time to have a primal faith that it was going to end sometime, that they were going to get through it. And Jim Collins will say that is the quality of businesses that are the great businesses. That what it takes in life is to be able to have the strength to acknowledge difficulty, to see it squarely, and yet, on some level without knowing how and when, to say, this too shall pass. And that's the quality that gives resiliency. That's the mindset of a paradox that takes one through difficulty and allows one to thrive later. Heaven knows we have been through so much uncertainty, radical uncertainty. As many of you know, I negotiated my final contract well over 2.5 years ago, and I was supposed to stop in July. But a year and many months ago, I said, COVID's coming up. No one's going to be in synagogue. Would the board consider extending my contract at least through the holidays, the next season, so that this year, which was 16 months away, who would have thought 16 months ago that COVID would be spiking with a new variant, Delta, in this moment around the world? And so we've been through a lot. That's just with the virus, let alone with climate crisis and war and all the difficulties that life provides. This song is the Stockdale paradox. In looking to the future, any year, there is uncertainty, there is unknown. Who will live and who will die? We will say in our Utana Tokef prayer. And then it's going to list all the natural disasters that are part of our newspaper now every day. Which is to say, wherever Jews lived, wherever people lived, looking forward in life, there is uncertainty. And so this psalm, some scholars said, is really two psalms that got put together. That's some scholars. After all, it starts so confident. The first 6 verses are repeated expressions of Adonai is my light and my deliverance, whom shall I fear? Adonai is the stronghold of my life, whom shall I dread? Very confident. And then, verse 7. Hear, Adonai, my voice when I call, as if it's a question, that God is listening. And grant me grace and answer me. I'm not taking for granted that you're going to give me what I need as an act of love and kindness. To you, my heart has said, seek my face. Meaning, God, look to me. Your face, Adonai, I do seek. After all, God, we have a relationship. Pay attention to me. Do not conceal your face from me. You can begin to feel his uncertainty, a dramatic contrast to the beginning of the psalm. And so again, some Bible scholars say, well, this is like two psalms that got pieced together. I love the Psalms. Here, let me just give you a little taste of the artistry. This is only to give you a taste of the artistry. Verse 1 are two couplets, right? Our couplets. They're both 5 words. Verse 2, couplets, 6 words. Verse 3, couplets, 7 words. This is art. This is words that are purposefully chosen. And then, listen to verse 4. Achad sha'alti me'et Adonai. And later, Rabbi Cantor, Amy's going to sing these words to conclude this sermon. Achad sha'alti me'et Adonai. One thing I ask of Adonai, and then he asks for several things. Of this I seek, that I might find Shabbat in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to behold the pleasantness of Adonai, to awaken in God's palace. Okay, pick it. Which is the one? All purposeful, because they're all increasing aspects of coming close to God. The one thing that I seek, God, is to be close to you, because if I'm close to you, I feel sheltered in the divine sukkah, the divine covering on the day of evil. And so, why this psalm? This psalm comes to tell us, in the last 2 verses, were I not to believe that I will see the goodness of Adonai in the land of the living, in this world, not in the future life, in the land of the living. And then it's ... It's almost as if he can't continue to say what would happen. He can't imagine, she can't imagine, what would happen if there was no sense of the intimacy, the care that gives us strength. For that faith that I spoke about, James Stockdale, he would say it's not rational. When you're a prisoner as a POW, you don't know how it's going to end. You don't know if it will end. You don't know you will survive. That is a statement that comes from a core belief, a faith. But without that faith, without that hope, then there is, in fact, no tomorrow. Beware of the optimist. Beware of wishful thinkers who say, I don't see it, it's not real. Beware of those who fail to take into account other people's health by refusing to wear masks. This psalm concludes, hope for Adonai, let your heart be strong and courageous, and hope. Hope. That's the word that gets repeated purposefully for Adonai. Adonai, the opening word and the closing word, the envelope of this. Well, I talked about Admiral Stockdale and the paradox. That paradox that is here in Psalm 27. But 2 things to know, and really to know, because we are living in a world of radical uncertainty. The 2 things to know is that we are not POWs. Our lives have been inconvenienced. And sadly, many of us know people who have been quite sick and who have even died of COVID in the course of the last year. I look at my friend Aaron Harari, who lost a niece and a nephew to COVID, a niece and a nephew in the last 2 weeks. It is real. At the same time, we are not captives. We have a life. We have inconveniences, but we're still able to go to Trader Joe's. We're still able to go to OC Kosher. We're still able to put together a beautiful meal tonight for our families, to eat and to laugh and to watch this moment from the comfort of your home. And so the first thing to know is that this is a challenge, but it's a challenge that needs perspective. And the second thing to know that is different is the miracle of this last year. There was never a messenger RNA vaccine developed before, let alone one developed in such a short time, that has not only been responsive to the alpha virus, but to the delta virus. It's an amazing achievement of human capacity. We who are created in the image of God have this enormous power, the ability to affect change. That is reason to be hopeful in dealing with climate crisis too. That's the COVID of a bigger kind. There isn't a simple virus that is easily responded to with a vaccine for climate crisis, which I am so deeply, deeply, deeply scared about for my children and my grandchildren. And I don't have to wait that long for the fires up north and the floods on the East Coast in this last week. That is a real problem that will require our collective focus, effort, and commitment. But we can do it. Psalm 27 is chosen because it's a psalm that looks at life squarely, honors that there are enemies, those who breathe out lies, and yet emphasizes that with faith of a better tomorrow, with faith that God can give us courage, stamina, and ingenuity, we can build a better tomorrow. Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, LeDavid Adonai Ori, the Lord is my light, Uni Yirah, who shall I be afraid? Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai, I only ask for one thing, and that is to dwell in your presence.
ולבקר בחלום, לחזור בנועם, בנועם אדוני, ולבקר בחלום.
Rabbi Ben Goldstein leads us in Kiddush, page 24.
Please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol am v'romamanu mikol hashon v'kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'atiten lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava et yom hazikaron hazeh yom teruah mikrai kodesh zecher liyetziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad baruch atah Adonai melech
al kol haaretz mekadesh
Mekadesh Yisrael, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael.
Melech al kol haaretz Mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom hazikaron.
Amen.
Amen. Page 25, Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יגבו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהושבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקבל לך אדוני אלוהינו לראות מהרה בתפארת וזכר להעביר כנעם הארץ, והאלילים קרות יקראתו מדפני ברבחות שדה בכל ונשא בני מקום יקראו ידעו ושמי. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
You may be seated except those observing a yurtside or who are in mourning. We had a funeral on Friday as a community, and that was for Paulette Green, a longtime member of our congregation. And we had a passing on Saturday with a funeral scheduled for Thursday of Anita Chana Woodcoff. May these two women, each extraordinary, be remembered as a blessing to their families and to us who knew them. Page 26 is Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom. I invite those in mourning or observing a yurtzeit to join together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam omei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'ol kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Ose shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'ol kol Yisrael v'kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. Rabbi Ben Goldstein comes back to the bima for his formal introduction by our ritual co-chair, Esther Dosick representing our board.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
It's good to be here with all of you. We have some announcements about tomorrow's services, but first we would like to formally welcome Rabbi Ben Goldstein. Rabbi Goldstein most recently served as the senior rabbi of Beit Teshuvah, a Jewish recovery center in Los Angeles. He previously served as a rabbi at Temple Aliyah in Woodland Hills and spiritual leader of Temple Beth El Makor Chaim in Cranford, New Jersey. They just had a lot of water there.
They did.
Rabbi Goldstein began working with us this month and will have 1 month overlap with Rabbi Spitz. Rabbi Goldstein and his 3 children live in Los Angeles. We look forward to in-person time with Rabbi Goldstein and meeting his family. We are confident that he will complement our congregation and meet our needs during our transition. We look forward to Rabbi Goldstein's participation in our High Holy Day services and his leadership throughout the coming months. Welcome, Rabbi Goldstein.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you.
It's good to be here.
Tomorrow morning, services begin at 8 a.m., led by Rabbi Spitz and Hal Hurwitz. The Torah and Shofar service starts at 9:10 a.m., followed by Rabbi Spitz's sermon at 10:30. Cantor Katz will lead Musaf beginning at 11:15. We also have something to offer for kids of all ages. Carl Cedar will be leading a family service in the Family Life Center beginning at 9 a.m. We ask that a parent or grandparent accompany your children at this service. Junior congregation follows at 10:30, also in the Family Life Center. Sherry Galante, she's our youth director, and Rabbi Goldstein will hold a program and discussion for our teens beginning at 11:45 in the youth lounge. And don't forget Tashlich at 5:15 at the Tustin Ranch Golf Course. Lastly, Mincha Ma'ariv is at 7:30 p.m. with Rabbi Goldstein and Eric Dangat. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
And we conclude page 28. Again, an opportunity for me to thank our cantor, Amy Robinson-Katz, and the choir that she has brought together to add beautiful singing. To everybody who's here, it is a joy, unlike last year, to be able to do this in person tomorrow. A choice indoors, physically separated with masks, or outdoors, a huge screen, 12 feet by 6 feet, out in the courtyard. And most of our people, we anticipate, will be watching from your own homes, which, again, is another way to connect and to celebrate. Page 28, Yigdal.
Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza ve'eretz hametziuto echad ben yachid ke'ichudo ne'elam v'gam en sof le'achuto ein lo demut haguf ve'ein haguf lo na לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דעתו לעולמים לזולתו. צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקמתו, גומר לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כמשעתו. ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, לבטו מחכה קץ ישועתו. מתים יחייהם ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו. מתים יחייהם ברוב חסדו, ברוך הדיין שם תהילתו.
Shana Tova Tikatevu Utichatemu. May we all be inscribed, written and inscribed for a good, a healthy, a year of wishes coming true. Amen.
Shana Tova. Nice job. Nice.